TV stations were in operation. We got in our cars, and we couldn't even get radio stations on the dial. That's how bad it was. And I remember that feeling of isolation, of being completely on my own. It was absolutely terrifying. And one of the things I remember so vividly from that was during that, I guess you could call it blackout, that 12 to 16 hours of being completely cut off from the world, aliens could have landed on the White House lawn and we wouldn't have had a clue. Not one clue. And that really just, chilled me to the bone, and it really, really affected me. And, I imagine, I think that's where I created the world of this dystopian future that I created. What if that level of isolation, what if that collapse in the infrastructure was not just, isolated to my own region? What if that were the entire country? And that really, really frightened me. And I thought, what would happen to our country if a sequence of very bad events happened in quick progression? And how would we survive, And I think that's really what led me to the book, was my own experience, in what I consider to be almost a post-apocalyptic world. You were in danger just driving down the street because, power lines were all over the place. I remember thinking that, because of course, like I said, I'm law enforcement, so I couldn't evacuate. I got my family out, got them to safety, and I had no choice but to come back. And I stayed with two friends. We kind of pooled our resources and stayed together. And I remember thinking, what if one of us has a heart attack? What if one of us falls and breaks a leg or, something? We're screwed. We have nothing to help us. No one's coming to our aid. I mean, I don't know how it is around the rest of the country, but I know in the state of Texas, as a result of Hurricane Rita in 2005, they made it law. They actually signed it into law that if you do not evacuate during a mandatory evacuation, you're on your own. Law and emergency services may or may not respond to what you're doing. And they even took it a step further. They said that, let's just say hypothetically you call 911, they come, and you're fortunate enough, you're lucky enough that they actually come and rescue you. Well, if they found that your situation was the result of your own negligence, that you could be prosecuted, and that you would have to pay the cost of, you would have to foot the bill for your own rescue.
Yeah, and you're putting the lives of other people in danger after you've already been warned to leave. Like that's not what I was going to say when I couldn't believe it. What I couldn't believe was when I saw people at the Louisiana Superdome. There was dead people in their wheelchairs, and they were just sitting there, not removing the bodies. There were women getting raped. In America, it was like a third world country in a war zone, man. And what about all this money that we gave to FEMA after 9/11? Where was all that? Where was the National Guard? Was it that?
Exactly. They weren't there.
Was it that bad of a disaster? I mean, what about, Sandy? I mean, that they had a problem with that too. And even just the water thing over in West Virginia, that was a whole big thing. No one could get water, and FEMA helped with the water for a little bit, but it was only for a few days, I think, and then the water quality was still bad. But then they left. So where's all this money going? Like, what about
Exactly. I believe me, I was screaming the same thing. During our my own experiences with it, especially with Katrina. Where's FEMA? Where's the National Guard? They're not even here. not, and they didn't show up for several days. That's
So you got to.
And like I said, I think that was very eye-opening to me, that you have to take care of yourself. That you can't, cry out and gnash your teeth and just weep and say, "Oh, please, please, come help me, come help me." That help might not be there, and what are you going to do? You need to be prepared for it. You need to have some sort of plan. You need to have some sort of survival mentality that you can save yourself,
Sure.
And yeah.
I mean, people these days aren't even friendly with their neighbors,
Yeah.
They don't even know their neighbors. They're not friendly with their neighbors. They don't want to have anything to do with them. Like in the 50s and 60s, it was like Leave It to Beaver world where
yeah.
And everyone was friendly. With part of my survival network, I suggest that you go to your neighbors' doors and introduce yourself and tell them that, you're putting together a survival plan and that, you'd like to get them involved. You get the whole community together, because you can't do it alone. It takes a village to rebuild afterwards. And if we're hit by a really, really bad disaster or combined disasters, it's going to be quite some time before things get back to normal, if they ever do. So you're going to need to rely on your neighbors. You don't have all the skills to do yourself. One person may be good at welding, the other person may have some medical skills. It takes a bunch of people. And the way people are now, all we want to do is isolate ourselves, watch TV, and go on the internet.
Mm-hmm. And, you're absolutely right. I remember one of the things that has always baffled me, and I'm sure you could probably do an internet search, and it probably happened yesterday or today, that during major power outages, people don't have the training or the foresight to be able to run a generator. They'll put it, inside their house. They'll put it in the backyard with windows open, and the whole family will die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Jeez.
If you can't, I'm telling you, that's happened. I in every major hurricane or any hurricane that we've had here, there's always someone that, will put their generator in their backyard, and then they'll leave the windows open. And the smoke comes in and kills the entire family. It happens every time.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy stuff being ex-law enforcement, and I bet that helped a lot in you writing your book with all the stuff that you did.
It did, actually.
So
yes.
You know exactly how people think and how they act during times of emergencies and crisis.
Yes. And I'm fortunate enough to have been trained, and a lot of that, over the past 17 years. And I think that's a skill that you shouldn't necessarily have to be trained on. It's something that you can train yourself on. And I think people need to wake up and do it for themselves.
Yeah. I've been taking online courses with FEMA and Homeland Security. They offer free courses. You can go to college for free. They're even good for college credits, they're independent study course. And I've been getting all types of certificates in emergency management, and it's a good program. I'm going to send you a free subscription to Disaster Survival Magazine. I want you to
thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for sending me your books. And we're going to give away a few of your books free, right, in a contest?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't want to give them away for free, though. I think people need to work for them. I think we should. This is what I think we should do. I want them to write a 500-word essay on what they're doing to prepare, and how they would handle a collapse.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. I like that.
And the best stories we're going to publish on disastersurvivalnetwork.com and in the magazine, and we're going to give away a few free copies to the best stories.
Outstanding.
All right. And the first issue of my magazine, I really want you to read. I have an article called Blackout, where it talks about EMP and solar flares, how it could take out the grid. And one of the scenarios I talk about is with Iran, how they sneak a nuclear weapon aboard a shipping container, and they modify it to where it has hydraulic lifts on it so it can launch into vertical launch position. And they pull up off the New Jersey at a shipping port at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they also do it on the West Coast, and they launch a nuclear weapon into the atmosphere about 300 miles up, and they detonate it, and it knocks out the entire electric grid for most of the country.
Yes.
And that's something that's very possible.
It is very possible.
They don't need to attack us with this big world war. All it takes them is to sneak one nuclear weapon in, and this country's done for.
Yes, I agree completely.
So
yeah, it is very, very plausible, and I actually did a lot of research into that myself, and yeah, what you're saying is very, very true. It could happen, and it's been proven. I mean, they discovered it, during the nuclear testing that they did in the 50s. They had detonated a nuke, I don't know exactly where, but it blew out the power grid in Hawaii, several hundred miles away, and they didn't know what happened. That's when they kind of opened their eyes. I'm like, wait a minute, what did we do? So it is a reality that we could see.
Sure, and they got stuff now where they don't even need a nuke, right? They have portable EMP, E-bombs or whatever they're called. And
absolutely.
I don't know. It just seems like things are getting more and more serious as time goes on, more and more compacted and more serious. It's like a powder keg. It just seems like anything could happen at this point. And
exactly.
If you're not prepared, you're out of your mind. People think preppers are the ones who are paranoid and a little crazy. It's the people who are not getting prepared are the ones who are crazy.
Yeah, and I know I kind of disclosed that, I don't exactly have a large supply of food in my home, which I need to get on, but I do consider myself a prepper. I have a bug-out bag, a 72-hour bag, however you want to call it, and I keep that thing stocked, and, I look through it, and I have smaller versions in both cars, so if we're ever stranded somewhere, we have food and water and, basic, survival supplies. And I think it's kind of funny, but I think in this region, anywhere along the Gulf that you'll find a lot of more people with the prepper mentality. They may not say, I'm a prepper, but, most anybody that has lived through a hurricane, they've got, a stash somewhere, whether it be, 10, 20 gallons of water, saved in the corner, or, I should give myself a little more credit. I mean, I do have a stash of canned goods, kind of that I rotate around. So I think we could live longer than a week in our house, but I think that's a mentality that, it's kind of sad that, the prepping community has kind of gotten, that negative stereotype. And I wish it's something that people would accept and not consider, preppers to be, paranoid and not consider them to be extremists and all that. And I wish it's something that, like I said, I mean, basic survival, going back to, like my grandparents. I mean, if we had more, like I said, that is a skill that is slowly dying with each generation. People are not self-sustaining and they don't know how to be. They have no clue how to be, and I think it's something that everybody should, I don't care who you are, you should have some sort of mentality that this can all be taken away from us. What are you going to do?
Sure. It's a throwaway society is what it is.
Absolutely.
One more thing before we go. By the way, how are book sales?
They're fantastic. Each day I am completely humbled by the amount of success that I've had, and